go out to shows yourself and go out to live events that you like, speak to the artists, speak to people, just get involved with it. And I've definitely met people like that when you can just kind of feel this businessy speak of like, what do you do? Give me your Instagram, and then that's an extra follow on the follow account.
What do you think is missing from the local scene at the moment?
What do I think is missing? I'll tell you straight away.
Before we get started, I just want to say a massive thank you to Arts Bar Baltic for supporting this episode of the podcast. Arts Bar Baltic is a venue in the heart of the Baltic Triangle region in Liverpool, and they host loads of great events, including a Battle of the Bands and an open mic night every Sunday. And the best part is that all of their events are completely free to attend. Do check out what they've got coming up via the link in the description below, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Sound Advice. I am joined by James from Boot Music. How are you, James?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. So, for people who don't know, what is Boot Music?
So, Boot Music began as an online music blog, but it's kind of recently changed into more of a physical magazine. So, we still run the online side as well, but the online side is kind of more for international stuff, more like broader output on there. Whereas the magazine itself is more for the Northwest and specifically Liverpool artists.
Yeah. What inspired you to create Boot Music in the first place?
I think it started back when I was keen on English in school, and I initially wanted to be a sports journalist. I was obsessed with Liverpool, wanted to write like match reviews and stuff like that. But then my English teacher at the time said that her husband was really into music, and he contributed to a few different music blogs and things. And she said it might be a good idea just to kind of get used to writing more, to just reach out to a few blogs and try and contribute to them. Yeah. So I started doing that, and then enjoyed it, but very quickly was just like, why am I writing, from a list of what someone else wants to feature and writing to their style and what they want to do? I was like, I just want to give myself more flexibility and write about artists that I like and I want to showcase. So from that point, just decided to set up my own website, which was tricky when you have no skills of doing that in the first place, and then just start writing about bands that I like, bands that I want to write about, and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think most people tend to come from sort of the music first, then get into writing, but it's interesting that you came from the other way around.
Yeah, it was definitely more a love of writing first, because I'm trying to think what age I would have been like 14, 15 maybe, and I was definitely into music quite heavily, but I wasn't going to gigs every week. I wasn't, finding the latest local bands on Spotify and things. I was listening to classic like mid-noughties indie kind of stuff. So I was into music, but I thought writing-wise, football was the thing that I was engaged in day to day. It's like I knew everything about what was going on in the football world compared to I didn't know too much about the music world. But I think from starting my own blog, you instantly just get into that world and find out what's happening.
Yeah. So why Liverpool then? So I mean, I'm guessing you're a local? But...
Yeah. So from the Wirral, so proud Wool. And I think it's just there's something special about the music community in Liverpool anyway. I think it's obviously known globally for its music heritage, and then I just started to connect and to have some friends that were involved in the music scene. I also, when I was about 16, was in a band in Liverpool and just really enjoyed the kind of playing places that everyone will have played now, like the Ship and the Jack and stuff. And I just kind of loved that community feel, and like you might play with someone one week and then 3 weeks down the line you're on another lineup with someone else, but another band that you've recently played with is there, and you're kind of like, how are you doing? What have you been up to in the meantime? It's just like a nice community feel. So I just wanted to get more involved in that and showcase it. Yeah.
What are your favourite parts of that local scene?
The live side it's a tricky one, really. Obviously, the live side I think is really good in Liverpool. You've got some great venues, but obviously you hear about so many venues closing down like you do around the country. Yeah. Obviously, we've just heard that Jimmy's in Liverpool is closing down, which is a real shame. But it's unfortunate, it's the way it goes. And luckily, the more that venues close down, you hear about other opportunities opening up, like here, Arts Bar Baltic are having like live shows and stuff on. So it's kind of nice. There's always somewhere. There's always going to be a hub where there's people running a project, a live like venue or something like that want to support local artists. Yeah. There's always somewhere that you're welcome into.
Yeah. And so where do you think the idea for doing a sort of magazine specifically came from? Because as I said, you were doing your blog, you were doing that kind of stuff, and then you've sort of moved more into the zine space.
Yeah, so it was always something I wanted to do. I think just it's just nice to have something tangible that you can feel, both from my side, having worked on it. There you go, you can see. It's like it's nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm a massive appreciator of that as well, because I think for me personally, there was a bit of a gap left in the city when Bedo Lito stopped printing, which was such a great sort of local music magazine that we had a couple of years ago. It was when I first came to Liverpool for my open day at the uni. I came in, I walked down Bold Street, and I popped into a shop and I grabbed a copy of it, not really knowing what it was, and I just read it from like cover to cover on the way back. And there is just something special about something as good as blogs can be. There's something special about just having something physical that you can really look through, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think this exact kind of occasion, it's like being in a bar like this and you meet someone and they go, "Oh, what do you do? Like, tell me what you do." It's so much nicer just to be able to say, "This is what I do." Have a look at it, look through it, like it looks cool. Yeah. Rather than being like, "Oh, if you go to this website or follow me on Instagram and then you can I'll send you this link and all these things." It's just nice to be able to do that. Yeah. But then also from the artist's point of view as well, for like a local artist, being featured in a magazine, having like a 3-page feature as an upcoming artist. Yeah. It's just a nice feeling. It's nice for them to be able to have something to show their family, to show their friends, and be like, "This is what I'm doing. And it's being successful." And when I was in a band when I was 16, I would have loved to be in a physical magazine because it's just nice to be able to show off.
Yeah, that is definitely something I'm jealous of someone doing a podcast where I have to be like, "Oh, well, I've got this link and you can look at this, you can look at that." So tell me a bit more about the journey so far since you started doing the zine. How did it sort of progress?
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned Bedo because that is definitely a big reason for it. Is obviously Bedo was amazing, going for many years, and I actually I did about a month work experience with them back in 2018, 2019. So I went into their office with Chris mainly, and kind of worked on one issue of the magazine with them. And I did some features with them. I interviewed Monkey Junkie, who I'm now still good friends with, Karan Karbal. And then I did some other reviews and like live review pieces for them and for that magazine. And just the kind of the thrill for me of seeing my own writing in Bedo was really exciting. And I did some further contribution for them. And it's just, such a nice feeling to be able to see the words that I was thinking of, the way I wanted to express how I felt about music in physical form and being able to show it to people was really nice. So when Bedo went, I was kind of like, right, they've gone. I don't want to be competing with Bedo because I love them. And also, there's no way I could compete with Bedo because it was so cool. But as soon as that went, I was like, right, there's kind of a space there. So when the time is right, I really want to try and do it. But then that comes down to the money aspect and funding it, which is a different story. Yeah.
So what sort of parts of Bedo do you think you sort of specifically wanted to sort of use and sort of make the best out of?
I think definitely the local side of it. It definitely felt like a very, a local like cultural gem that everyone kind of knew about Bedo. And it was like, if you're doing well, it's like, when's your time going to come? When are you going to get in Bedo? Yeah. And so I really like that aspect of it. But then also I think the fact that they didn't just cover standard releases and things. They would cover the weird and wonderful like cultural scene in Liverpool. They'd do like, there was some random little rave things where people were, it was something to do with politics. It was like some anti-political rave thing. They were covering that. There was some like dance events that they'd cover. I think they were just covering like a wide aspect of what's going on in Liverpool. And that's really something that I want to try and do more of going forward as well.
Yeah, because I think anything that's covering music, you're sort of by proxy just covering culture in general, especially when you sort of focus in a local city.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, it's, with a very tight-knit community like Liverpool, and there's loads of music going on, but obviously it's still quite a small city. You kind of, if you're just doing music, you kind of quickly feel like you've covered everything for that, that period of time. Yeah. And so you kind of need to go and cover other little bits that are going on, and then by that time, more stuff's come along and new stuff has happened. Yeah,
no, for sure. I mean, you mentioned funding. Obviously, printing a magazine and sort of doing all that kind of stuff isn't cheap. How have you sort of navigated that and being able to fund this project?
Yeah, it is a really tricky one. I mean, that's why most don't do it. It's the funding side of it. And that's something we're kind of looking at going forward, trying to make it more sustainable. And it is tricky, but so we make money from the online side of things. And so originally we were kind of just using the money that we made from online, put that into the print edition, and then kind of they would cancel each other out. And at the time I was working full time for Sound City in Liverpool. So it was kind of, for me financially, it was okay because I had a full time job, and I would just kind of balance those two things out because it was a passion of mine. But then now I'm working 3 days a week part time, and I'm focusing 2 days a week on the actual magazine and other freelance work. So it's kind of like I need that money that we make from the online side to live off. So it's becoming tougher, but I mean, we always try and get as much advertising in as we can from local businesses, which is, was a huge help. And then we also try and make money off the live launch shows that we do, and looking at different funding options as well.
Do you think where do the sort of live events come into that? Because that's something you've been exploring a bit recently.
Yeah, it's something we've been exploring. It's never been the area I want to focus on the most at all. I'm not a promoter. I don't want to be a promoter, but that live aspect just makes the social and community aspect of the magazine work. And I think when you've had, in one magazine, you've had about 20, 30 people involved, whether that's the artists that feature in it, the writers that contribute, the photographers that contribute to it as well. There's so many people that are actually involved in making that. And so it's nice to just have a night where any one of those people that's been involved can come down to and can enjoy and can meet each other if they haven't. Especially if it's a writer that has written about a local artist, but they've never actually met in person. It provides a really good vehicle for those people to connect and to meet. And it's also just fun because I get to put on bands that I like, so it's a fun night out. Yeah.
I mean, that why do you think that community aspect of building a project like this is so important?
It's what it's all about. I mean, the community aspect of it, it's I mean, one, like kind of cynically, that is how it grows. That's how you grow a thing like a zine, is people knowing about it and talking about it in the community and getting to that point where people are mentioning it to their like artist friends, saying, "Oh, are you gonna reach out to Boot? Are you gonna try and get a feature in it?" That is how it grows. But then also, it's like that's how you make friends, and that's how you kind of, in this period of myself and everyone that I kind of know in the cultural scene in Liverpool, that is your friendship group. That's kind of like the people that you want to spend time with and like learn from and share things with. And so it's just really nice to make a kind of a family feel where people around the scene and they all can connect at these events that we do.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great. I think that people underestimate how important it is to like build that little sort of community, because as you said, that's what it's all about. It's what sort of brings us all together. So in terms of the local scene, it's an interesting question that someone suggested to me. What do you think is missing from the local scene at the moment?
What do I think is missing? I'll tell you straight away.
A great local music scene.
Medium-sized venues, I would say. There's just such a big jump up from, you have the smaller side, like less than 100 cap venues, which are great. You have like Kaz Stockroom, the Jack, Shipping Forecast, Quarry, places like this, now Arts Bar as well, which are really good for bands that are starting out. But then especially now that Jimmy's is gone, which was slightly bigger
that was quite a nice sort of level.
Yeah, it's like the trajectory of an artist in a city is really difficult when the jump up is so high. Yeah, because it's you want to be able to do start off at like an 80 cap kind of venue, then go to kind of 150, 300, and then keep going up in increments until you can hit places like the O2 Academy, and then you can obviously eventually get to places like the Olympia and the Arena. But at the moment, for a band that's kind of, they feel like they've done the circuit of all those small venues, it's like, where do you go then? And quite often the answer is you have to go outside the city to do that.
I think that's something, as much as I hate to say it, that Manchester does have over Liverpool at the moment, is that they have those sort of in-between size venues where you can sort of build your way up and sort of, you could, as you said, go from like venue to venue. And I do think that you do have a bit of a thing at the moment where people get sort of stuck on the same sort of circuit of the same kind of venues, which is, they're great venues and they're sort of great community nights and stuff. But I think it is increasingly becoming an issue. Is it something I've heard mentioned as well at Liverpool Community Region Board, like music board events, is that there's a consistent thing of we need more sort of medium-sized venues. How much do you think losing Jimmy's and Liverpool is going to affect that?
Yeah, I think it's tough. Obviously, losing Jimmy's. I think on the grand scheme of things, I think it just kind of it's a drop in the ocean of the wider problem. Really, I think it will have an impact, but I think those bands will perform elsewhere. I think it's a shame that it's closed down, obviously, but the fact that it's closed down is just evidence of the fact that it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And, even over the summer when they were offering the space out for free, which is a really good thing to do, and there's some great shows on there during the summer, but that's kind of just a sign of how much of a struggle it is, and they're getting to the point where venues are just trying to get people in for free just so that they can have people, paying at the bar, which is is good for promoters and it's good for bands sometimes, but it's not good for the venue itself because they need money coming in to be able to be sustainable. So I think it's another loss. Yeah.
How do you think venues can do better to survive in this day and age? Because it's difficult. I think it's something like 20% of venues have closed in the last 5 years or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, that is really tricky. I think one thing, this isn't an answer because I have never tried to run a venue, so I couldn't tell you.
I don't think either of us can really preach too much about this.
And I know, the things about the increase in rent and all the bills involved in running a venue have all gone up, and it's such a strain, and getting people out to gigs is becoming harder and harder. But I think probably what I would like to see a bit more of is in-house promotion. Instead of constantly getting third-party promoters in to put their night on. I think a venue having a real identity of the kind of bands they want to have on attracts people to the venue, and it gives the venue itself an audience.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. It's something that 24 Kitchen Street, as an example, do really well, is that there are people who are almost 24 Kitchen Street fans in themselves, as opposed to, they're obviously also fans of the music, but I think that's a really interesting perspective because I do also know some third-party promoters who might disagree with you, but I think you're right. The venues having their own identity can be really important.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of like I think it's trying to get a balance because I think obviously there's you really want promoters coming into your venue. Obviously financially it helps as well. It's kind of a safer bet, but also it brings in fresh things that you might have discovered because even if you're booking your own shows as a venue, you don't know everything that's out there, and you're probably working so much that it's hard to have your ear to the ground as well across the entire scene, so you're going to miss things. So I think establishing the kind of things you want to put on in your venue by booking your own shows and then welcoming in outside promoters that kind of align with the direction you're trying to go in is a good blend.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, actually. Moving on from the venue stuff slightly, in terms of the Liverpool scene, who are some of your favourite local artists at the moment?
Some of my favourite local artists, well, the cover of the last magazine, Shifu, I think they're the standout at the moment, I would say. I think both just their attitude is great. They're all really nice people. Their music has got an edge to it and it's great live. But then also just their aesthetic as a band is just so easy to like and to get on with, and it fits so well coming from behind that wave of crawlers that they kind of exploded, and then now Shifu have finally started supporting them, which is the perfect fit. And I just think Shifu are the next ones to kind of make that trajectory. Also in the last magazine, Stone is smashing it at the moment.
The back cover as well.
The back cover indeed, yeah.
Just as a little side note, I love magazines that do a back cover, so good job on that.
Yeah, Stone just so good live. I saw their hometown show at the O2, and it was I hadn't been to a show like that for a long time, where it felt like it was a big Liverpool artist playing the biggest show of their lives, and it felt like it meant so much to them. And it felt like it meant stuff to the crowd as well. It was like a crowd full of people that had followed them up from where they started, and even Flynn followed him from some of his other projects he'd done in the past. And it was like this huge family, some that had been there for years, some that were brand new to it, all just kind of appreciating the band that having their biggest moment. It was just it felt, as Liam Gallagher likes to say in his big moment, it felt biblical that they were there and they were just clearly loving it so much on stage, and they were saying about how much it meant to them, and the energy of the night was just amazing.
Yeah, I think the way you describe that definitely reminds me of similar gig where I went to see Courting at Arts Club, and that felt like a similar moment of sort of one of the biggest like local gigs that this band have ever played, and sort of a band on the precipice of sort of, it sounds bad to say getting out of the local scene, because it's not that it should be something that you want to escape, but sort of getting onto that like national scale of being able to consistently like tour and play huge gigs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Courting, another great band. They kind of surprised me with their debut album.
Yeah, I think they surprised a lot of people. I've got a friend who loved Courting until the album came out and hates them now.
It's kind of, it's testament to how creative they are, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they're another band that we've interviewed, and it was really interesting speaking to them, to just see how they kind of view their own music. And they're not the kind of band where it's like, okay, we've got our sound, this is what we like doing, you know, either listen to it, if you like it, you like it, if you don't, you don't. They're kind of like, we're going to go in, and one day, this is what we've been listening to the past week, we want to try this out, and we want to, they still always have their kind of weird, twisted, angsty feel to it, but they are not afraid to experiment. And I know for sure that their second album, which is in the works / coming out soon, is just going to be completely different to the first one. Yeah. And it's going to, again, surprise people and have some weird experimental stuff on there, but have some more just infectious indie anthems on there as well.
Yeah, I think I remember having this conversation with a mate who, when the album came out, he was saying, but it's so not Courting. And I was like, yeah, but that's so Courting, to just do something completely random and just like completely like subvert your expectations of whatever you thought they were and just completely twist it on its head.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when they released that song Jumper, it came on Spotify or something, and I just thought, that's a great song, who's this? And I was like, it's Courting. But that's not what Courting sound like at all, because I was used to like their Grand National EP, which is like very dirty and very like grimy. But when that came out, I was like, I mean, I love this as well, but this is not what I thought Courting was. And then if you listen to the album, there's just so many different kinds of sounds on there that it's hard not to like at least one of the songs on there. Yeah,
no, for sure. Moving on to getting back to the local scene, what do you think like small and up-and-coming artists can do to sort of become a part of that local music and creative scene?
Yeah, I think it's hard, for one, particularly for artists who are coming in from out of Liverpool, out of town. Because Liverpool's a city that will always welcome anyone from anywhere coming in, but it can be difficult, just from the personal aspect of it. Because I know a lot of people, they come in to Liverpool for uni, and then they try and...
That's how I came here.
Exactly. So, and then they try and start doing something creative like you're doing in a city which isn't their home, and it's like they will know people through uni or through whatever, but it kind of feels like starting again for them in terms of building up a creative base of people that you know, that you can collaborate with, people that you know that will want to come down to your shows. It's kind of like starting again. So I think my advice to them, and to anyone really, is just kind of go out to shows yourself and go out to live events that you like, speak to the artist, speak to people, just get involved with it. Not from a cynical trying to get something out of every night and like mingling and networking kind of way, but just, meet people. And everyone's so nice on the local scene, especially, all the kind of people that play in the smaller places like Arts Bar, Cas Stockroom. Everyone's nice and welcoming. So just go out there, chat to them, ask them what they're doing, speak to them about what you're doing, and just connect with people.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Just you can't go into every interaction sort of. If you go into interactions as in a sort of transactional way, you're never gonna get anything out of it, ironically.
Yeah, and I've definitely met people like that when you can just kind of feel this businessy speak of like, what do you do? Give me your Instagram, and then that's an extra follow on the follow account, and it's just like, I mean, that's fine for getting more attention and stuff to your project, but it's kind of a bit it's clear that the interest in the other person's project is completely false, and it's just like, I don't think long term that's going to work. Just it's about making friends, and like not every single person that you meet you're going to end up being mates with, but just go out there and speak to people, and you'll find the right people that you align with and you connect with, and you'll form a little community there. Yeah,
I think it's a great chat. I mean, you were talking about going to local events, going to I'm sure you want to say going to a local boot magazine launch. Good example. Because I went to the event at Soto. Was it the other month?
Oh yeah, the one.
And I spoke to a few people there, and there's just a nice friendly feel to it, and you'd be surprised how open people are to just having a conversation with you.
That's the thing. I think people that aren't so entrenched in local scenes and stuff, and just kind of they like the odd live show that they go to, and then they want to start their own band or want to start their own creative project or whatever. I think sometimes they don't appreciate how communal a live show can be, because if you go to a big show at like the O2 or something, it is, you go in and you watch the act facing one way, and it's great, but then you leave and then you kind of go and have a drink with the people you came with. That's the way it works. But in a smaller venue, there's so much room for chatting to new people in between acts, and going for a drink afterwards with people that you've met that night. It's a very casual feel, and it's just kind of about putting yourself out there and just going to a few shows. Sometimes that can be scary, but the result of it is nice personally, making friends, and then also creatively you form a little community.
Yeah. How do you see, as someone who's running a local music magazine now, how do you see the role of sort of that local music press evolving in the digital landscape that we find ourselves in now?
That's an interesting
Sorry, it's a bit
one.
of a deep one.
No, yeah, no, that's a really good one though, because just in general, the role of the music press is something I'm always very torn on, because a lot of the times there's things that are being put out which I don't think are really that helpful to anyone. And I'm sure that there's things that we've done when I'm like, you look back on it and you go, who's that really helping? Is it helping me? Not really. Is it helping the artist? Not really. So I think the role of the music press definitely is changing. I think it's about becoming more engaged in those communities that I was just talking about, rather than being the kind of a higher power.
Yeah,
definitely. Not to say that, I don't think there's anyone locally music press wise that is like that at the moment. I don't think anyone's kind of doing it wrong. But
cover your tracks nice.
Yeah, of course. But you just kind of sometimes get it, nationally, there's a few that are kind of trying to be this higher power, and it's like we have to say over what's good in music and what's good in the city. I don't think that's the role at all. I don't think the role is to. I don't really like giving. I don't like giving kind of scores and things. I don't really think the music critic side is where I want to go at all. Yeah. It's more about being part of the community, just being a kind of forum for showcasing the best new music that's coming through locally, and kind of interacting with those artists and being a voice for them, to just be like, if you've got a bit of a platform, just speak to them and go, I really like what you're doing, out of, no cost to you or anything. Just here's what I want to say about you, and I'll shout about you to everyone that follows the magazine, because I just like what you're doing. Yeah.
I think the era of what you'd probably call like as the sort of music gatekeepers in terms of like press and critics is almost dead now, because you've got anyone, because of TikTok and YouTube and all these sort of platforms where anyone can be a creative. I think anyone can review anything and anyone can criticize anything to the extent that it almost becomes meaningless in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's exceptions. There's people like I can't remember his name now, the guy that does the needle drop.
Anthony Fantano.
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, he gives everything the scores, and I do not hold him down for that, because his reviews are incredible, and I love watching those. But I think the new era of the music press, I think, is more like Justin Hawkins from The Darkness. He's got his YouTube channel, and what he does is just, if something catches his eye, it can be something that's bad as well, but if something catches his eye in the public, he'll just give his thoughts about it from a kind of an informed perspective from him working in the music industry for so many years, and he'll just go, this band I've just seen, they're amazing, and he'll just do a quick video on it, and you can see his passion for it coming through, and that passion's infectious, and it makes everyone that's listening go, this, I love this, how much he loves it, and I'm going to go and check these guys out. And I think that's more where I want to take the magazine. It's about seeing something I like and just shouting about it, and hopefully getting across my own passion for it in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you talk about the needle drop as an example, I think scores and ratings work for him because it so fits within his personality, and I think that's a lot of what you were saying is sort of doing with the new way press is going to sort of work itself out is sort of people adding their own spin on it and being like, this is my take on this thing, not this is what you should listen to, this is what you shouldn't listen to, this is good, this is bad. It's sort of giving your take on it and sort of fitting more into the subjectivity that makes music great.
Yeah. Well, question for you. Where do you find most of your new music that you like?
That's a good question.
Because I bet it's not through any kind of press.
Probably not the majority. I mean, I don't have Spotify. I've got Apple Music, which is the same but doesn't recommend songs as well.
So it's a very bold thing to say on a podcast.
I know.
I might get cancelled for that.
Spotify, if you still want to sponsor me, I'm more than available. So, no. So I think with Apple Music, there's less finding music through an algorithm side to things, but I think there's sort of just I sort of quite like that because I have quite a variety of sources through like sort of Instagram accounts and Twitter accounts that I might follow, and local press does come into that, and press comes into that. But I think it comes from such a wide variety of sources now. Whereas I think if you were asking people 30 years ago, where do you get your new music? They'd probably say Enemy or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that was kind of I think that was kind of cool, and it'd be nice to experience that in a way where it's the case of when the new edition of something comes out, it's like, oh, it's exciting. Who's going to be featured in this issue that I've not heard of? And I'm going to discover some new artists today. That is really cool. But I think that then does also lead to the gatekeeping thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
When it's like that magazine or whatever has a kind of say on what's in and what's not. A bit too much, has a bit too much of a monopoly on it. So I think, as I say, it's kind of now, because there's so many sources, like you say, it's just about shouting about the things that you love. And because there's so much saturation, so many bands out there, that just having someone shouting about it and being like, out of everything, I've picked this artist. I think this artist this month is my favourite. And this is one that everyone should go and listen to.
Last question for this sort of part of the interview. What are your plans for the future of Beat Music?
That's a tough one. I think depends on money.
Global domination.
Yeah, depends on money largely. I think we've applied for some funding, so that that'll have a big impact on what the future is. I think ideally it would be nice to get a bit more involved in some festivals and conferences and things, and kind of do a bit more in-person live interviewing of artists. I think potentially going forward we might turn one or two of the live shows into starts off as a live interview and then goes into a live show, because I would like to just kind of bring the idea of interviewing and things a bit more to our audience. It's nice inviting people down for the live show to connect, but it's also like you invite people down to see the finished product of something, whereas it'd be nice to invite people down to see the process of an interview that is going to be in the magazine.
That's a great idea. You should do that.
So that's something I want to do. But again, it's all about money, really. So I think the base level is just keeping it going. We want to do quarterly magazines, which is what we did this year. Yeah. So we just want to make sure we can do that for next year at least. And it's kind of just short term. It's just keeping the money going for
keeping what you're doing now going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if that funding comes in, then things are going to happen. But we'll have to wait and see.